Elon Musk was on a press tour this week doing 2 interviews and inviting the Secretary of Transportation to Giga Texas. The information he announced are absolute game changers, as we now know the details of the robotaxi rollout and, more importantly, his commitment as CEO to Tesla. To top this all off, the new demo of Optimus is blowing experts' minds. Tesla's now on a tear and proving without a doubt their coming dominance. We've got the bulls here with us today. We've got Tesla boomer mama, the queen, Alexandra Mertz. We have Matt Smith, the financial bull, and Joe Bakhti, the pioneer bull. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Herbert.
Thanks,
It's
Herbert.
great to be here.
So lots of things happened last week. I mean, literally in just a few days, Elon was in multiple interviews. He had the Secretary of Transportation visit Giga Texas. And more importantly, he answered a lot of questions that we were asking, waiting for the answers for, like his commitment as CEO. I mean, a lot of it is repeat for people like us, but certainly important for the bears out there to finally hear him say, no, I'm going to be CEO for the next 5 years. And here's the details of what that might mean. And then he dropped details about the robotaxi, and then they dropped the Optimus bot. So let's start with you, Joe. What did you see last week that maybe, did it supercharge what you're expecting to happen for Tesla? The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. We enjoy listening to bears.
We're looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
It's just worth reminding people how big this upside opportunity is.
Well, actually, I think the most important takeaway is Elon is back on Tesla. Not that he was ever really gone, but what we see now is he's really back in the limelight. And there are 2 interviews in a row. We haven't seen him, I think, in 6 months or something on dedicated Tesla interviews. So I think that's a big signal that his focus is really on Tesla because of robotaxi and because of all the things that are happening. So that's, I think, the big takeaway. And I think that's something markets and investors, institutionals at least, really wanted to see because, all the fake news, Elon is not paying attention and he's not caring for Tesla. I think that was a very important signal. On the substance side, we heard a lot of interesting things. For me, the most interesting thing, there was some validations about the robotaxi launch that are not news to us, right? So we heard, okay, we are firm for June, which is in 2 weeks. He stuck to the 10 to 20 cars or 15 cars at day 1. But then he was actually elaborating a little bit on the scaling. And of course, he was a little optimistic to get to 1,000 cars within a few months. If that happens, I will be very happy. I think all of us will be very happy. But I'm cautious. No one knows that, including Elon, because who knows what's going to happen. And I think for me, the most important validation was Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, doubling down, showing that this whole brand damage narrative, Elon getting involved in politics and how bad that is for Tesla and SpaceX and everything, is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How is it bad to be super close, to have dinners with the President of the United States, to be best friends with the Secretary of Transportation? You have to be highly delusional to think that's a bad thing if you need approval for autonomy. And Sean Duffy even had these Freudian slip or whatever slip, where he said, we want to bring this technology standing in front of the Teslas to all Americans across the nation. And then he corrected himself like, of course, any autonomous technology. But it tells you how deep embedded Tesla is in the administration, especially in transportation. And the ability to have a federal framework for this rolling out in the next, let's say, 3 years is just huge, because that would just unlock the entire market. So I think for me, it was mostly nothing new that, you wouldn't know if you have a very close-up look at the whole situation, but it was a validation of the bull thesis that this is going to be ridiculously awesome.
Great points, Joe. Appreciate that. I'm going to ask you this same question. I'm just going to ask here to Matt now, because I know both of you do detailed financial modeling, forecasts. Did your forecast change based on any detail you heard last week? Matt, what's your answer to that?
No. So the big change to my model was maybe 4 months ago, something like that, where robotaxi went from being a separate valuation case to becoming my straight base case. 6 months ago, even, I think I was kind of skeptical that robotaxi would launch at all in calendar 25. But I'm willing to change my opinion as new information comes in. And V13 was it was like so clear that they'd solved it. And they as the June launch not only came from Elon but came from Tesla and everyone, and was reiterated time and again, and the data's tracking to it. I thought, like my anecdotal experience finally matches what Elon is saying, and now it's not just Elon saying it; it's the rest of the autopilot team that is essentially validating that we're go for June. So at that point, I thought just the prudent thing to do was to make robotaxis the base case and roll it in there. So my individual ramping assumptions, I'm sure, are going to be wrong, and we'll adjust how quickly that goes over time. But that was the big change, and I don't think I'm going to make any substantive changes to the rollout until we're actually live and we're seeing how quickly they do or don't add new cars to the fleet.
Yeah, I think you should just times two everything. Just times two everything.
I don't know. It's giving me pretty good numbers already, so I don't know that we need to add too much juice to it.
Okay. So last week, Alexandra, you made a comment about Elon coming out. Why is he coming out doing these kind of roadshow? What's happening with the shareholder meeting? And there's a few things he talked about, right? About his compensation plan, his staying on as CEO. Can you tell us a little bit more about what did you hear about what happened last week?
Correct. Thank you, Herbert. Yes, and I think the word is correct. It was a roadshow. It's a beginning of a roadshow, and I do believe there are parts of the roadshow we're not seeing, meaning they're also going to visit now institutional investors, those that are holding, the 5, 6, 7, 8, what I know, biggest institutional investors, to prepare them for the questions that are going to come up in the proxy. There has never, since I follow Tesla, so at least 5 years, there's never been a morning where you had 2 Elon interviews with 2 different partners with 2 different angles. And there he was listening. And I mean, the first one, I would have walked off. I mean, the questions, excuse me, I would have told that lady, go and look for a good boyfriend. But I felt there was a willingness to sit this out and to answer and to stay polite, which shows me that he is in the mindset that there's a vote coming up, there's proxy votes coming up for which he needs support. There is no point in annoying people. This is a moment to consolidate and to bring together. And the questions were actually asked a little bit towards that, the compensation package, and he avoided them as much as he could. He said, this is the board's decision. This is not a place to talk about it. He clearly stated his disdain, I would say, for the Delaware Chancery Court. That's nothing new. We're in Texas now. I still believe that a lot of people don't value enough that very short verdict we had a couple of months ago in that Donald Hall case, where the shareholder of 28,000 shares said we cannot validate the move to Texas because the vote last year was 63%. It should have been 66.6%. And that's wrong. There was a precedent that clearly allowed it, but he did that law case anyway. And so the judge, Chancellor McCormick, did what is called a summary judgment, meaning, no large hearings, no nothing, because she was very convinced of what would happen. And the answer
I have to correct you, Alexandra. It's not a judge. It's an activist in a Halloween costume.
Good one.
Okay, I gave you that one. But anyway, so that Donald Hall judgment by Chancellor McCormick, you can put the subtitles now below it, made it just definitely clear that nobody is going to put that in question anymore. We are now a Texas company. And a lot of things happened. I think that is the precise moment they waited for to put the new special committee in place that is now working on compensation plans. We talked last week in the Cyber Balls about it. Is it going to be Class B actions? Is it going to be options? Is it going to be both? So is it going to be an exchange with XAI shares? Everything is possible. I'm not decided. The one thing I want for sure is that he gets more voting power, and that comes with Class B shares, in my view. And so we'll see what else they come up with. But all of that needs, in my view, I didn't go back to the bylaws yet. I have to still do that. 66.6% vote. So this is a steep uphill battle if we introduce a new class of shares, and hence the roadshow, hence trying to get support. CNBC is the channel that everybody in this institutional world watches. So his interview with Faber was directed to these institutional investors. And I'm sure there's more happening behind
Makes
the scenes
sense.
of the board members and whatever. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make, I did on Tuesday in our X space, but I think we have a different audience here. And again, it's probably me not communicating it clear enough. So I'm trying to do a better job now. Tesla's board remuneration had been decided in 2014, if I remember right. And it was very generous because in 2014, the stock price was very low and you had to come up with something that incentivized good people to come and stay, right? And so it was then based on, I think, $80,000 of annual salary for normal, not that any of them are normal, but on normal board members, and 200 and something for the chair, who was then Elon. And a lot of stock options. And the stock options obviously appreciated a lot over time. And so our board members became very rich, not because of the fixed payment, but because of the stock options. Then a pension fund, I think it's Detroit, but I can be wrong, there are so many of them, did a law case against the board of Tesla and some executives, saying they are too much remunerated. And instead of fighting it, because they didn't attack Elon, they attacked the board members and the executives, and the board members and the executives settled. They didn't want this all spread out. They didn't want to fight for this. And they lost. So the settlement is that they would give back all the options they had received between 2017 and 2020. So for those 3/4 years, they only had their fixed payment, and some of them even renounced to that. Since then, they have not reinstored options. So actually from 2017 to 2020, they received them. They are now sometimes cashing them out. That's when you see certain dates when all board members execute their options and sell. It is to give the money back to Tesla. And then you have the new period from 2020 to 2025 where no options are allocated. So actually board members are only paid between 2014 and 2017. Well, they're paid from 2014 to 2020, but the last 3 years are paid back. So when you see all these sales by Robin Denholm, that's the point I want to make. It's either the 2014 to 2017 tranches. So this woman is finally executing stuff that is up to 11 years old and is getting paid for it. And obviously the difference between the exercise price and today's price are enormous. And that's why she's making so much money, as we all are if we were invested in 2014. Or it is that tranche 2017, 2020, which they then have to reimburse. So I just want to make it again very, very clear. These people are getting rich, yes, because Tesla stock went up so much, but not because they're getting again and again and again new fresh options and are executing them. Actually, they worked for the last 8 years for more or less nothing.
I also don't understand this whole attitude of all these people, from Detroit to the person in the judge robe. Who has that idea that you have a deal with people back when it's not obvious, and then everyone gets very rich, and then everyone starts complaining about these people? Like, what's the idea here? I don't even understand it. I don't understand the logic.
And that's why I'm really, not agreeing that they should have settled. Now you have to know that story is not over yet. They've settled on the grounds, so they're paying them back and whatever. But the verdict is actually not finalized yet because it is in appeal. It is not in appeal on the grounds. They have settled. They have agreed to pay it back. I don't think they should have done that, but they did it. I mean, it's their decision, not mine. But then your favorite person, Joe, Chancellor McCormick, allocated attorney fees. Now you have to understand this. I mean, I'm not saying the attorneys did nothing, but the attorneys put up their claim and then Tesla settled, right? So there was not much additional work to be done. And her verdict was $185 million for that.
Yeah.
And they are appealing the $185 million.
Yeah. Okay.
Has she done anything that actually protected Tesla shareholders?
No, no,
Like a
I mean,
single thing of all these
well,
actions and orders? Like,
the one thing that where she was quick was that summary judgment to confirm we're out of there and we're now in Texas. I think that was a good thing. She could have dragged that out. There's still 2.5 law cases hanging there, so we're not done with her yet. Plus the two
I mean,
appeals.
it's kind of it's outrageous. I just have to just quickly chime in because I have a lawsuit right now in LA against me and now also against them. It's kind of ridiculous what's going on in the United States, that you have these predatory law firms that get extremely overpaid. It's absolutely predatory, and the victims here are us, the shareholders. I mean, they're taking money from Tesla for not just for nothing. Nothing would be already bad. It's for worse than nothing.
Well,
You're
that's
basically-
why
it's
it
like
was
ba-
so sure.
it's like
That's
back
why
in
it
the
was
Middle
so
Ages,
ultra
right?
important. That's why it was so ultra important we moved to Texas. There are 3/4 things that are different in Texas. The one thing that is obviously absolutely different is that contrary to Delaware, where you can make your new laws with every case because you can base it on precedent or on your feeling or whatever, and then you have a new judgment. In Texas, it's strictly by law. So it's a much firmer, clearer vision. The second point is that you need at least 3% of shareholders to bring a lawsuit. So something like Tornetta with 9 shares after split 135 shares would not be possible anymore. Tesla is 3.2 billion shares outstanding, so you would need 100 million shares to start a lawsuit. Obviously, you can group together and make 100. Then the next point is that attorney fees in Texas are limited to 4 times Lone Star. So attorneys are not going to become as rich in Texas than they are in Delaware, which is a big difference, right? Because if you don't have this monetary incentive to just make a lot of money on any law case, even if you settle, then the whole thing becomes much less attractive to do these cases. So so many times I'm just pausing for a moment saying, we're in Texas, calm down. We're in Texas. We still have that tail to, clean up in Delaware, but we're gone. We're out of that hellhole and we're gone.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, Alexandra. This is information that the shareholders really, really need to hear. Basically, whether you're institutional shareholder or you're retail, we need to vote. That's going to come up. We'll get the proxy drop soon. There's going to be a shareholder meeting. And one thing we are expecting or hoping for is allowing Elon to have Class B shares or get what he wants, which is not remuneration so much as 25% voting control. And so you mentioned also that that's not unusual. Mark Zuckerberg has that in Facebook or Meta now. The Google
they have
guys,
more than 60%, yeah. And I actually
Google
think
guys
25% is too little. I honestly hope that they push it to more than that, because he currently has 13%. If we win the appeal, I mean, he would have had 17% if he didn't have to sell for the purchase of Twitter, but now he has 13%. If the appeal finally in Delaware in December confirms what we all hope for, then he's back to 20%. If those 20% become Class B shares and he has 2-to-1 voting power, that would, for example, give him 40%. Now, let me just make that a little bit relative. It's not really 40% because the pie is only 100%, right? And so it's a little bit less than 40% because we have a little bit less and he has a little bit less. So on paper, it looks like 40%, but it's actually something more like 35%. Because there is only a pie of 100% of votes.
Yeah, there's dilution.
So we had,
I have a quick question, Herbert, to Alexandra. What's the exact timing? Do we know that timing when the proxy vote is, and who was in charge of determining that? I'm just curious if that's somehow timed with Robotaxi.
Well, that's what we had hoped, but it's too late for that now. So usually a shareholder meeting has to be within a very close window at the same date than last year, or you have to inform the SEC. So sometimes Tesla is very smart. For years, I've now looked at this. Suddenly, they do it much earlier, or they put in place these special committees. If you have a special committee because you need more time on a certain subject to prepare, the SEC obviously grants you that it becomes later. So that happened last year. Last year, we were waiting for it, and then we knew suddenly there was a special committee because both Texas and re-vote on the compensation plan, and then it took weeks and weeks, and finally it came. When the proxy comes, the date of record is 2 weeks earlier. So let's just say for a moment, the proxy would come on the 15th of June. that would mean the date of record where they count how many shares you had and giving your voting power would have been the number of shares you held on the 1st of June, 15 days earlier. Okay. And then from the 15th of June, it always has to be a 6 weeks window, so up to end of July, where people can vote all over the world. I mean, we have 10 million retail shareholders. No other company in the world has 10 million retail shareholders, only us, right? And so those 10 million retail shareholders, hopefully most of them can vote. Usually the participation in those votes, in those proxy votes by retail shareholders is extremely low, below 10%. But with Tesla last year, we got way over 50%. So what we did was unprecedented for the number of shares. So anyway, so 6 weeks to vote. And then exactly 6 weeks after the proxy drops, the shareholder vote is. Now, I think it will be on a Thursday again. If you look, it's always Thursday. So we can expect it to drop on a Thursday, because then comes the 6 week period for the countdown to the shareholder meeting.
But you think the actual voting will happen in July? Around
it will
July?
happen during those 6 weeks between when the proxy is published and the date of the shareholder meeting.
And the proxy will be published probably in June.
6 weeks prior to the shareholder meeting.
We don't know. Yeah. Alexander said
We're
it could be
waiting
4
for it.
weeks, anywhere from now to 4 weeks from now.
It could be today, it could be next Thursday, it could be another day than a Thursday, it could be in 4 weeks, because they put in place this special committee, and the special committee is a very good means of delaying stuff. Why do I think they may want to delay? If they're currently doing this roadshow, they're not only going on CNBC, they're also going to talk to Vanguard, to Fidelity, to State Street, to BlackRock, and they're saying, okay, lots of stuff is normal stuff, but we have these two subjects, blah, 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 blah. What's your reaction? Then these people have to meet behind closed doors. And then at one point they call back and they say, I think if you formulate it a little bit more like this or like that, we could get behind that. Because once the proxy is published, it's published. Then we vote on a certain text. And I think we're in this making the dough period where they're consulting with the big ones to know, because to get to 66.6%, currently retail shareholders are only 36%. And Elon will not be allowed to vote on the compensation package, probably not on the Class B Class B shares put in place neither, right? So we're actually moving down from 100% pie to 87% pie. So our 36% become a little bit more. But anyway, institutionals have the large majority now. And so you need to make sure prior to putting that text in. And there is really, this is like in North Africa, bargaining. Okay, we may accept this, but in contrary, that's what happened last year. We would like to have a vote on that board members have to be reelected every year. So they were very smart. They put in an advisory to have board members voted on every year. So at the moment, it's not firm. But that came in. That was a clear bargaining token for somebody who voted in a certain way on another point.
Okay, so we need to step up. As soon as we hear that they drop the proxy, all of us need to start working to spread the word like we did last time, and make sure people vote. And if it happens that one of the items is giving Elon voting, that Class B shares, we should do that. Here's Elon when he talked about his CEO position. He was interviewed at the Qatar Economic Forum, and this is what he said about that.
And how committed you are to Tesla. Do you see yourself, and are you committed to still being the chief executive of Tesla in 5 years' time?
Yes.
No doubt about that at all.
Well, no, I might die.
Okay, short of that.
I can't be CEO if I'm dead, so there's a slight amount of
Does that mean that the value of your pay doesn't have any bearing on your decision?
Well, that's not really a subject of discussion in this forum. I think obviously there should be compensation for, if there's something incredible is done, that compensation should match that something incredible was done. But I'm confident that whatever some activist posing as a judge in Delaware happens to do will not affect the future compensation.
Yeah, okay. So that's great. So he clarified a couple things, right? What he's going to be CEO for at least the next 5 years, and two, future compensation is now controlled in Texas, and the activist judge can't affect that. So that makes me feel very, very comfortable. I know some people said, yeah, this is things we already heard already. Nothing new here. What do you guys think?
I mean, it was good that he reiterated it. I want to get back to one point. Sorry, Herbert, I'm interrupting you, but not only do we have to help people vote once we have the proxy, it is important that people listen to us today, make sure that if they have margin accounts, they contact their brokers and ask if they are lended out. If they're lended out, tell them that you want to stop being remunerated the couple of bucks you're getting for lending them out, that you want to have them. Because if they're lended out, it could very well be that you're also giving up your voting rights, and you want to be able to vote. You don't want these shares out there and somebody else voting them.
Yeah, and I think what's very important, Elon also reiterated this. That's also my point with Tesla. This is not just anymore just a business. Of course, it's a business and we want to make money, but it's going far beyond that with Optimus, with autonomy. It's about politics. It's about global infrastructure, geostrategy, especially with Optimus. This will be national security issues. It will define which continent will be successful and things like that. It's about an enormous thing that's going to happen. Now, why is this important? Because you can only imagine what that does to the Tesla shareholder vote power and the board. I mean, this will be something on a scale no one has ever seen. This is going to be about controlling the US military or something, right? So this is absolutely non-trivial who controls Tesla. If they do this and they have billions of bots out in 2038 or whatever, this is going to be crazy. And it's going to be not about money. It's going to be about enormous amounts of power. And Elon already sees that. That is why this is so decisive. And I tell you, that makes me nervous, of course. If Elon doesn't get these votes, it's going to be bad, because Elon is very serious about that. He is not going to build this company the way we want him to build it if he loses control, or if he's even at risk of losing control. So this is a very high stakes game, way more high stakes than people get it, because most people out there think, oh, whatever, he's just greedy. He wants more options. If he doesn't get it, who cares? This is about something much, much bigger. Elon is not gonna build a giant, the most powerful thing ever built as an organization, and then loses control over it. It's not gonna happen. So it is extremely high stakes.
Yep, and he deserves it. I mean, it's not even a question that, we just want to be generous. He thoroughly deserves it. He feels like there could be activist investors, like there are activist judges. They will have a more difficult job in Texas than they would have had in Delaware, but that doesn't mean they don't have a possibility to do it. Actually, Amy, who did the lawsuit in Delaware with us, pointed out State Street. State Street has voted against both points last year, and State Street's ETF is holding 3% of Tesla shares, right? That's a 3% limit in Texas. So if they feel motivated to bring a case, they could. And actually, I want to address myself to all the State Street ETF investors. You find similar products at Vanguard and Fidelity who are positively encountering, Tesla shares and Tesla votes. So if you feel that there's no particular reason for you to be at State Street, go somewhere else. There are, many good funds that are exactly similar, or other funds if you want to diversify. But maybe we should all encourage people to leave State Street. They're just above the 3%, and best thing would be that they don't have 3%.
Yeah, and it goes beyond that. So that's a very good point, Alexandra. But I think these guys who think they are not accountable to anyone, State Street, but also Vanguard, also BlackRock, and all these guys, right, who hold enormous amounts of shares. If you take the top 5, I don't know how much, like 30% or something, and like together. I think it's very important now that Tesla becomes, something beyond a normal business. We have to understand there's a lot of interest and brokering behind the scenes that has nothing to do with money, right? If this becomes like a political thing, there is all kinds of ways they can exert influence. But what I always preach to everyone is, why are these people so powerful? BlackRock, for example, because we give them our money. And, we do this through all kinds of complicated, paths. For example, pension funds who are the pensioners? Like that's us or many of us, right? So there is a level of influence the population has on them. Like it's not their money, it's our money indirectly.
Mhm.
So I
Oh,
think
I
people,
completely agree.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
yeah,
think
we
there is, I
need
mean, the whole
to,
ETF industry, is a big ripoff because we have traded cheap access to funds and passivity because people don't want to look after their money. We have traded this comfort against all rights. And they know exactly what they're doing. I mean, if you see what happened a couple of years ago in the whole DEI sphere and in the investment sphere,
exactly.
these people decide where the money ends up and what political direction it takes, what who gets money, who gets lended, who gets. It is crazy. We talked about it a lot of time, Herbert, when that period arose, but it's still the same. I mean, I really advise people, if they can do something else than invest in ETFs, just look at, of course, one, but if you needed 10 stocks that you know about, and then do your direct investments, and then ideally do directly register shares. Don't leave them in your brokerage account if you don't need that money. Register them directly with the company's transfer agent. Then you have your money secured. That's the only way for you to have the full influence on your
And your vote.
shares and on
Yeah,
your
your
voting
vote.
rights.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You actually own the stock.
Exactly.
Okay, so guys, this is incredible. So obviously, great points, Joe, that this is much bigger than we realize. So hopefully, we can get more retail investors investing in Tesla, and then as a group, all of us need to mobilize the retail investors to at least to do a vote and let them decide.
Yeah.
This is much more important than it's ever been. Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we've got that. Thank you for that, Alexandra. We got the next topic here is the robotaxi details, right? So we have robotaxi launching in just a few weeks here. It could actually be literally a week from now, right? 10 days from now, June 1st. We've not yet heard that date, but there's a lot of other details that Elon confirmed, right? 10 cars, day one, maybe 20, 30, 40 as the weeks go on. Very, very, very tightly controlled. There won't be a safety driver, but there'll be remote drivers. It'll be in a very small geofenced area of Austin where there's less intersections. What did you guys get out of those details of robotaxi? Were you excited about it? Were you did your thinking change of that? Why don't we haven't heard from you, Matt? What was your thoughts on the details of robotaxi?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was largely in line with what I was thinking. I mean, when you're starting, when you're going from 0 to 1 on something as huge as like robotaxis, you don't want to go to like 1,000 robotaxis all at once and just all the logistical headaches and risk of an accident and all the problems. So I think starting out with 10 cars like that, you can be significantly over managing that fleet just to make sure that absolutely nothing goes wrong. And I think there's going to be a decent amount of kind of fine tuning of the user experience that they'll need to figure out as they start rolling this out to the general public as opposed to just some employees. So I think it's smart that they're doing it small. I think I'm most interested in kind of what is the pace of the increase of the fleet size over time, and then when you get to some you'll be expanding the boundaries, like the geofence location within Austin over time, and then eventually going out to other cities. So I'm very curious to see how quickly that process takes, because I think we've been in the last 7-8 years watching the progress of FSD, and it was like would have fits and starts, and it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back for the longest time, and now we're finally at the point where FSD is ready. And now we're rolling out to robotaxi, and I think it's the same sort of unknown where we don't know how fast that rollout is going to be. So that's the biggest question on my mind right now is this the sort of thing that's going to have a meaningful impact in late 2026? Or are they going to be so cautious in rolling it out that, it's more of like a 2027 or later kind of thing to have a meaningful impact on the financials?
That's not what Elon's saying, Matt. Elon's saying that, of course, it's Elon, right? So
yeah, I guess that's true. Elon's saying hundreds of thousands to 1 million vehicles by next year. That's what he's saying now. But I think we have to take that with a grain of salt. And to be fair, that's actually what I'm modeling in my base case before Elon even said anything. I think that is how it's going to go. Okay. But I mean, you run into some issues, and that rollout could slow down. So the pace is what I'm most looking for to see if that just to give me comfort that million unit by next year target is actually meetable.
So Matt, I don't know if you have your model there, but can you share your base case December 2025 and then the end of 2026, just for me to sync?
I actually don't have it pulled up. If you want to share yours while I pull mine up, we can do that.
The other question I wanted to ask you both is, okay, Robotaxi rolls out in Austin. They're now going to go head to head with Uber, but also Uber's going to have Waymo to be part of their service, and I think there's 300 cars of Waymo that you can choose in Austin. So they're really going head to head with Tesla. I wanted to ask you guys, what do you see rolling out? How's this going to happen? Will Waymo exist for 3 years in Austin? Are they going to die within the first 6 months? Will they be competitive? Be curious to see that. So answer that later. But okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, I think I can share your screen here. Yes.
So I have here all kinds of things. These are I have these nice charts on this side, but I basically have a slow, expected, and fast rollout. Here's EBITDA, but here's the Robotaxi number. Okay. And this is the key. So I'm basically saying we are at 20. If we are rolling out slow in June, so 10 to 20, end of June, like I would say June is month 1. So depending when they actually start, I assume June 1st, but if it's June 30th, then everything is shifted. And a slow rollout means like very, very slow. So they're adding 10 per month and then 15 per month, and then it slowly creeps up. Expected, I'm a little more aggressive. So they're basically doubling this by end of June and then keep doubling it. And that's what Elon basically also said, right? I mean, it's something around here, maybe fast. And so I'm getting to something around 2,000 to 3,500 in the expected or fast ramp in December. And that means if that happens in Austin, that would kill Uber more or less, in my opinion. If they have, I also assume that they have a second city at this point. So it's not necessarily all in Austin. But if they had anything above 1,000 in Austin, that would have a major impact on Uber. I'm not even talking about Waymo. For me, Waymo is kind of a joke thing. But this would be, this would kind of wipe out Uber if they have that many robotaxis in Austin. And here's the miles, Herbert. I just put this in. So what I'm seeing is the fast scale. They get to 10 million miles already in October.
Okay, so the reason why I was asking you the question is that Waymo came out just yesterday, and they basically said, we just hit a milestone. We now have 10 million paid rides. That's yours are miles? I'm talking paid rides.
These are miles,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you're saying that Tesla could be at 11 million miles of driving, which if it's a mile, if a ride is about 2.5 miles per ride.
And that's aggregate. You have to consider this is basically 20 million miles aggregate by October. So if it's like 3 miles or something, they will overtake Waymo in November, latest in December.
Yeah. So 10 million rides sounds a lot for Waymo, but theoretically there is an aggressive scenario within this year, Tesla could actually match it already.
Exactly. And if you look at the actual robotaxis deployed, where's my robotaxi number here? So if you have 3,500 robotaxis, I mean, Waymo is at what, like less than half that, even if they would start scaling now in December. They were for the
longest time at 700 cars and then just recently jumped to 1,500 cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Waymo is just totally dead in the water. I'm thinking much more about Uber than Waymo. Like at what point does Uber get into real problems? And of course, nationwide, this will take a while. But Austin will be so interesting not to benchmark robotaxi against Waymo. I don't care about Waymo. I just saw this co-CEO interview. I don't know if you guys saw that on X. I mean, that was like completely ridiculous. So, I mean, she said basically nothing and couldn't like make any projections. So I'm very unbullish on Waymo. So I'm really benchmarking robotaxi against Uber to see when Uber gets into real trouble. And Austin will be so decisive because Austin will deliver all the metrics we need to see what impact robotaxi has on Uber. And as I mentioned before, if they get to 1,000 or more robotaxis deployed in the Austin metropolitan area, this will have dramatic impacts on Uber, especially if they come in much lower per mile cost.
Yeah, Joe. So my numbers are pretty similar to yours. I'm slightly slower on the Q4 ramp, but I'm getting to the same. In my model, I've got 112,000 vehicles in the fleet by Q4 of next year of 2026. I think you were at 100,000.
Yes.
I was at 500 vehicles by the end of this year, as opposed to I think it was 1,000 or something. So slightly lower on the initial part of the ramp, but I think I think that's less impactful than, when we get to scale. And I think we largely agree with that. In my model, I actually have the miles driven as I'm comparing that to the total percentage of like Uber annual miles driven. So you can kind of see like, okay, when do you like cross half of Uber's market share? And in my model, I have them getting to about 48% of Uber's total annual miles driven by the end of 2027. So, they ramp up pretty quickly, and I find that to be a helpful metric because it gives you an indication of what level of pricing do you need to have in order to kind of expand the TAM and to take that much market share. You have to be undercutting on price. So I think that's a helpful gauge in seeing, okay, if you're going to assume
global,
you're like,
right, Matt?
yeah,
Are you doing global?
It's global. Yep. So
interesting. That's a great metric. I have another metric where I basically have the percentage or like in lines of additional robotaxi EBITDA compared to 2024 total Tesla EBITDA to see when robotaxi actually overtakes all of Tesla 2024, which happens in 2027 in two of my trajectories.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, I'm looking at my model right here, and like the numbers just get crazy. So in Q4, this is just a quarterly number. The platform fee revenue from robotaxi is $6.4 billion. That's very high margin revenue as well. And so like when it translates down, I've merged it in my base model now. So what happens is you get this massive kind of uptick in earnings per share starting in 2027 once you get to that kind of critical mass. So that's the thing that people who are skeptical, or like the Gary Blacks of the world, who's just say like, oh, like, the economics won't really be there. I think when you really model it out in detail and are doing some checks against like Uber's market share and pricing and making sure that the fleet operator can still make a profit when they're paying for FSD and all the cost inputs of the car, and paying for insurance and paying the platform fee, like you look at it from all those angles and it still makes sense from everybody on an IRR perspective, then that model makes sense, and you can assume that the market will be there. So that's, I think we're very close to this inflection point in profitability, but it's not going to show up in 2025, I don't think, in any meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, but I think everyone is so primed now, including the analysts. It doesn't have to show up in 2025. What has to show up is the trajectory, because not even our Wall Street friends are so dumb to not get that, right? If they see, oh God, it's doubling every month, they can do the math. And so, I think the all-decisive thing, that's what I talk about in my channel and Pioneer Lands, like with our community. I say like this, the all-decisive thing now, especially for leap and call option holders that are a little more nervous on the timing than shareholders. I mean, shareholders, we always win. But for the long-term call options holders, this is all about June, July, August, September, and having these trajectories mapped out. That's why I have so many scenarios. Right, Matt, you have more like a dedicated scenario where you're confident that's it. I'm stretching it out a little bit more and say, I don't know. Let's plot these lines and then match the numbers monthly and see what we can see on the ground. And how we want to generate alpha before the market is to understand what trajectory are we actually on. Like, I want to track that in real time and then extrapolate and know, okay, now we have takeoff or not. Or now we are delayed.
How do you integrate the phrase Elon said in the last earnings call, where he said he expects significant financial contribution to the results of Tesla by mid 2026, and then later he sort of watered it down a little bit and end of 2026?
Pretty much. I mean, this is the model similar to Matt's model. We just see it, the trajectories, and that matches my middle trajectory, and also, of course, the aggressive trajectory, where I'm getting to actually over $3 billion in added EBITDA in 2026.
To clarify what I understand all of you guys say, including Elon, is that by middle of next year, it's going to be material. it's going to move the needle. By middle of the following year, 2027, you got Joe saying that it's actually going to be equal, to the total.
It's bigger. Yeah.
Bigger than what auto business is doing last year.
Well, the total business, auto and energy and credits. But I mean, we have to see, but I'm pretty bullish that if we get to this 2026, mid 2026 scenario where we have a lot of cars on the road, I mean, nothing's going to stop them at that point. So then I'm pretty bullish this is going to happen.
Yeah, and the exact timing of when, if you're an option holder, like you said, yeah, that matters a lot. What I'm looking at though is just the general trajectory, because I know I'm going to be off by a few quarters, but like 2027, I think this is what a lot of the bears are like, people who maybe just aren't that optimistic on the stock, because they look and see, it's like a PE of 100, just it sounds a little too frothy in this market. But in 2027, I'm looking out and I'm like, okay, well, my quarterly EPS is higher than 2025 total EPS at that point. Mm-hmm. That's why, that potential is why investors like us are happy to buy it, $344 a share, wherever we ended today, just because this is the future that we see and that we believe in, and we're willing to kind of wait it out and invest ahead of those earnings being there.
Yeah, and I have a nice PE model where I basically have 1 year forward PE and the actual PE based on my share prices. And the peak of the PE would be 2026 if the share price behaves the way I think and hits 289 in my model. But then it drops pretty dramatically down to 90 by 2028 and forward PE to 43. So, I mean, this is all about...
By that point, robot is already going like that, maybe. So...
Exactly. And so it's all about this whole PE situation is not very smart as a metric in a situation like this, where you have two giant new revenue streams coming in that scale exponentially. Because if you have any anticipation of that, you have a crazy high PE for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. This is why I was so happy to go all in 2019, because people are like, oh, like the earnings too high, like the company's not that profitable. And I was looking at all the analysts' expectations for 2020 earnings per share, and I was like, they're wrong. Like they were expecting a reversion in earnings when the company was ramping up the Shanghai plant. I was like, that makes zero sense. So if you can get ahead of these trends, it can be very valuable.
It's all about the inflection point. It's all about the question, when does this thing really work, FSD, and scale? Because when I see the critics, Gary Black and everyone discussing these things, the arguments are terrible that they have. Like the arguments like, oh, the insurance is going to be so. It's like, what are you talking about? Or, oh, Tesla will fail to build out charging stations. How dumb is that argument? Like, I don't even understand what they're talking about. So,
or they don't know how to clean the cars.
No, the big argument is that in 3 months, this is the actual thing, is that 3 months after Tesla launches their autonomous robotaxi program, everyone else or a handful of others will be able to compete at the same price. Okay, so we're going to launch in June. So let's take a look. July, August, September. So by October,
Herbert,
who?
Did they understand anything? The millions and billions of miles that Teslas have driven, that have calibrated their cameras.
Apparently, it doesn't matter. It's software, Alexandra. They can copy this. And by the way, who cares about the cars? Some manufacturer is going to make Waymo LiDAR cars in 3 months and have thousands of them, but they've not announced.
Sure.
I think my favorite bear case argument was, I don't know if you guys remember Greg Wester. He was really big online like 5 years ago. His argument was that nobody would use the Tesla Robotaxi network because they couldn't figure out how to use the handles. The handles are just going to be too complicated for your average consumer to get into.
Yeah. It's pennies to attach that conversion thing so that you can use it.
Or that there's so much Tesla hate, the brand damage, and then these innocent little robo-taxis that can't defend themselves, they're all going to get destroyed. It's like, dudes, they have cameras. It's an act of terrorism now. I don't think so. And we're in Texas.
I was saying that, let's say there's 1,000 robo-taxis in Austin, and then let's say there's 100 of them that was damaged and, that happened, right? That's a lot. I don't think it's going to be 10%. Let's say it happens. The very next morning, Tesla owns these cars. They will be fixed and back out on the road again the next morning. It's like, it's not going to be a big deal.
That's what they have learned the last 15 years since the IPO. this was painful. Running service centers is a pain. Looking after car customers is a pain. But they've learned that. They're coming from a place of 15 years of experience, deep experience of improving the cars, improving the servicing on the cars. Nobody else has that. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you feel in two different, when I'm using my car in FSD and now I have AI4, I feel I have a cheat code to the world. And everybody else has no idea that I'm not driving, that I'm chauffeured around, but I'm sitting in the driver's seat.
Yes, that would be. Do you guys have price targets for the end of this year, both of you?
Yeah.
Okay, please share.
My price tag is 1,100. That's the fair future value. I'm not saying, by the way, here's how I see it. I model it out.
No, I was not doing that. I was like,
I have my fair future value, and I'm not betting with options or anything on this. I just say this is the forcing function. You can delay it. You can be at 500 end of the year, but at some point you have to catch up because there is a forcing function, because these are 10-year forward-looking discounted cash flow.
Not so quick. I told my 5 kids when we're at 1,000, I take them all to a Europe trip, and when we're at 2,000, I buy them all an Optimus. So not so quick, please.
I think it's gonna lag behind my target, but that just means there will be a more vertical, catch up at some point. And
okay,
I think that
you're
will
at
be latest
$1,000 the end of this year. Brian Wang is still sticking.
1,100, Herbert.
Okay. I did not hear the 100. That's okay, but that's Brian Wang is also sticking to his guns with 1,000. That's the most I've heard so far. Matt Smith, Mr. Conservative, where are you at?
So I've stopped putting a share price to it. I'll publish my earnings per share, but since we're highly regulated, I'm a registered investment advisor, and we got compliance, things we need to be aware of. I just try to avoid putting price targets out there, just so it's not coming off as giving investment advice. So I'm bullish, definitely excited about where we're going. But I try not to do, especially time-bound price targets for that reason.
And it's, by the way, it's important that my price, it's not a price target, it's the fair future value. So,
understood.
because I don't think necessarily that I would bet on the share price getting there. But I know this is my line because it's future cash flow. So if it's not there, that's even better.
Okay, so good that you clarified that, because this is the big difference, right? The big difference is that you have mapped, you did a forecast, you did a kind of the spreadsheet, and you're bringing down the future cash flow value to today. That's what you're supposed to do. But investors and institutional analysts, what they'll just do is they'll cut off their forecast to 1 year forward. I'm like,
I mean, it's
we don't understand why they do that, but that's what they all do. They'll just knock it off at 1 year.
And there's so much to discuss about the whole financial, like people talk about PEs and share price. Like, okay, it's very simple what the basics of investing are, in my opinion. You have a company. What is the value of that company? And the answer is it should be 10 years of cash flow.
Yeah.
That is you can say it's 15 years, but its discount doesn't even make a big difference. But that's negotiable. You can say I believe in 7 or 10 or 15 years. We can discuss that. No one is right or wrong about that. But everything else is a little bit bogus, right? You want to anticipate the future. You want to discount the cash flows. Take your time period, like 10 years, and say that is the value. I'm willing to pay that much for the company because that's what I'm getting back with interest. And then it comes down to, can you foresee the future? How accurate is your prediction? And if it's accurate, that's the best way of value a company. That's why people should actually focus on what is that future and what are these margin and cash flow streams. And that's why I find it so hilarious when people like all these Wall Street guys say like, well, we are not counting robotaxi. It's like, what do you mean you're not counting robotaxi? It's the whole point. Like, you're clearly not anticipating
it's a car company, Joe. You don't get it. It's a car company, and they're not making enough cars.
Have you looked at the Q2 demand numbers, Joe? It might be down.
And they don't do a shorter version, no hatchback. So it's a bad car company.
Oh my gosh. If there was a hot hatch, it'd be worth an extra $50 a share, but there's not. So
and they're so dumb that the car that they're planning for 2026 doesn't even have a steering wheel. Who's going to buy that?
Right? They're so cheap.
Okay. I will I'm going to temper a little bit of the conversation here, because I still will stick with my thesis My thesis is that robotaxi is going to be very successful. I'm driving FSD. It's going to be great. They're going to do slow for the first 6 months. It won't be material earnings until the second half of next year. I'm not going to say the stock will jump because of robotaxi this year. Maybe next year, right? Alexander and I believe 2026 is when the stock will jump. But the reason why the stock could jump this year is not robotaxi, it's the bot. And so, they dropped this demo just yesterday, 2 days ago, day and a half ago. And you can see the progress of the bot. There's a lot of caveats to this. I'm not saying that it can do tasks now, but what was the breakthrough? And by the way, I have 8 Tesla AI team members all come out and post on X. And if you read every one of their posts, they basically keep saying, we made a breakthrough. And the breakthrough is the sim to real, one shot, and that they were able to use first person video, like, what you're seeing. So if they see you stirring a pot, they can just put it to sim, take those videos, and all of a sudden this bot can do that on its own, full body mechanics, like the bot's knowing what to do with its legs when it's trying to do something like that. And now that allows them to accelerate and basically exponentially grow tasks that you can now teach. So teaching a bot to do some task is now becoming this was a breakthrough for them. And then soon they said the next breakthrough would be if they can do YouTube videos or videos where you're seeing a third person view, you're watching another person do that action. Can you now do that action without seeing your first person view? So that's a breakthrough. And so this is such a big
it's
deal.
It's all good about breakthrough, but he really has to learn to iron. So I really have,
Who said
because
it
this
can?
is not how it works.
Why not? Look at it.
This is cheap ironing what they're doing. I mean, I will do a video where how to iron a good man's shirt, like a t-shirt, whatever, and then we'll talk.
Okay, if it can do this, Alexander, it can do ironing. Come on.
Well, look
Why
at
not?
no. Look, wait. It's coming to ironing now in a second. It's in the back there. Just give him a second. Now after this one is the ironing one. Is on a orange t-shirt, and he is doing. Wait. It's coming. It's bad. It's like bad. Come on, keep on going.
Look at this, by the way, pressing a button. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Where's the ironing?
It's on the left here. It's on the left in the middle.
Oh, I never saw it.
And there was actually a part. But I think you went over it. But it doesn't matter. It was bad. But I mean, already the position of the t-shirt on the table is completely wrong. How he holds the iron is completely wrong. But I will put a camera on my head and iron and send them to the
Yes.
And Alexander, you always have to consider you are a top quartile user. I'm a bottom quartile user, so it's gonna be fine for me.
I'm a German obsessed ironing lady, so it has to come to my standards.
I will buy it way before you because my standards are extremely low.
So to be clear,
it will be trained by me. You will thank me later.
the bot's not going to be able to do these tasks. They're not going to sell it. They're not going to come to your home. It's not going to happen for years. But this gives you the confidence that it can do you can do useful tasks, and it can do more than just pick and place. And that's the key. That if Elon says, I want to make 1,000 bots, okay, great. All of them will do pick and place. If I do 10,000 bots, what are they going to do? If it's just pick and place, yes, you can sell it to others to do pick and place. But what happens when you make 100,000 bots? They need to be able to do another task that is useful. And you saw them kind of helping with the Model X. That is what could move the stock more likely by the end of this year, not robotaxi.
Well, I'm not so confident about that. I think robotaxi moves it faster because I think people are just not, they have an imagination problem. And as long as Optimus doesn't just make a ton of margin, they're just not going to get it because these breakthroughs are so enormous, what we see with video now, because it's just a question of time, probably this year, that they can do third-party videos and, third viewpoint. And that's why I'm so incredibly bullish on Optimus, because there's so many developments coming in parallel in AI and training and learning that they can't even imagine what's going to happen. But when it comes to the money people, I think they need to see Optimus in action. They need to see some profits. They need to see the robot as a service
Joe,
model and the margins?
Morgan Stanley was invited, and investors are apparently invited at the end of Q4 to Giga Texas. No, to one. I don't know where to Tesla, so that they can watch robots, Optimus bots in action in the factory. That was already announced that might happen.
Yeah, I have no doubt they will see it, but they might need the business model and the margins and stuff like that.
I agree with you, and they will have the typical reaction, which is there's going to be so much opposition in the general public. Robots won't be easy accepted.
Exactly.
People won't let robots in their home. And I mean, we're laughing about it because we're already, beyond that. But there's a general fear for robots. And the thing is, there's actually a general fear of AI. Will AI make my job redundant? And it sort of crystallizes in the bot. They don't realize that long before the bot is actually going to be in their home, their job is going to be redundant. But it's sort of the bot. They feel the bot is going to drive the truck. No, the truck is going to be self-driving. But you see what I mean? So they feel the bot is going to replace the truck driver. No, but there's lots of negative anticipation to what the bot is going to do to our society, which is going to happen without the bot already. But that will delay. And there are people, at the moment, what's happening, people have to adjust to so much. These financial analysts were used to doing 6 to 12 months price projections on a couple of numbers, right? Suddenly computers and ChatGPT and Grok can do that much better than them with much more resources. So their own jobs are at danger. And they are trying to resist this all. They have to come to grounds that finally retail investors and people like Matt and Joe are doing a better job, a quicker job, and are more focalized on 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 stocks rather than them having to look after 40 stocks because their boss tells them that's what they have to do. So there's so many changes that thinking that they now have to put the robot into the Tesla model, which is actually given to the car analyst, right, who is comparing it to Toyota and to Volkswagen. This this is shaking up a whole industry.
I want to chime in here, and I think I was a little bit more optimistic on robotaxi being a near-term catalyst, but I was shocked at how good those dancing videos were. And not only like the hardware that it can actually move that well is of course impressive, but the fact that they were able to train it so quickly to have such natural motions was just extremely impressive. And then this breakthrough on actually economically useful tests. And Alexandra, you're right. Like it's pretty shaky right now. Like even that pot stirring, he's like moving the pot around. Like there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done before this is actually like economically useful. But I think the rate at which this is improving has surprised me, and I was already pretty optimistic on how much value it would provide. But I was kind of thinking more like 2029, 2030, we'd have some meaningful income. I think my expectation for how good this is going to be, how quickly, has significantly accelerated. So the one comment that stuck with me recently was, Herbert, when you were interviewing Chris Camillo recently, and he said that like there's a lot of actual excitement about the humanoid space. I think investors who are excited about AI in general, and believe me, that's like almost all investors, they are looking at this space and saying, okay, humanoids can be a multi-trillion-dollar space. Like most investors, if you just ask them, they'll be like, yeah, that's true, over a long enough time horizon. And if that's true, what companies should you invest in? Tesla's the only public investable company right now. And I thought that was an extremely compelling point that, yeah, like people aren't getting into Figure and Apptronic in any meaningful ways, and these other companies that are out there. So it wouldn't surprise me. It's not a prediction, but it wouldn't surprise me if Tesla's valuation gets, really ahead of itself, just in the expectation that they are going to be leaders in the humanoid space. And that's a much bigger opportunity than even robotaxi at full scale.
I mean, for me, these are always, the stock price, the tactical stock price, and who goes in and who doesn't is for me a little speculative. I'm not saying you're wrong, Matt. You're probably very right about it. But I like to rely on cash flows, and the cash flows rely on technical progress. So I'm trying to predict the technical progress. I was actually not surprised at all with this Optimus thing, because I was always more bearish on FSD for many reasons. I'm getting now pretty bullish. But on Optimus, I always predicted everyone, including Elon, is underestimating how fast this is going to happen. Because Elon is actually always late on Optimus. So, I mean, he's, he thinks it takes longer than it actually does. And my prediction is this is happening faster than anyone thinks, because it's actually easier than robotaxi, in my opinion. And the convergence of all these exponential AI functions totally hit Optimus. Right? It all hits Optimus. So
and
I think
yeah, so I want to completely agree with you on the first part, which is like cash flows are ultimately what matters. So I did the Optimus valuation, and that like undergirds my entire kind of long-term conviction on how big that opportunity is. So I agree with you that, but I do think it's interesting to kind of think about the timing and the different shifting narratives. But the other thing I think is maybe playing in investors' psyche a little bit is we look at how excited we were for FSD 6 years ago, and we extrapolate that like we're going to have a similar journey for Optimus now,
which is that is a big
that's
mistake.
a huge mistake. That's a huge mistake, exactly, because you're right. All these technologies are converging. You've got all the lessons learned. The hardware is significantly better. The training techniques are massively better. There's so much more like your starting point is so much more capable than FSD circa 2017. So it just
what we have today,
mistake,
what we never had ever, is a supercomputer, Cortex and Colossus, and they're building the second Cortex and the second Colossus, and they're going beyond 300,000, and now they're going to 1 million H100 GPU equivalents. That's what you track. If that is growing and didn't exist before, now exists, and they've already proven that compute is tied to progress of intelligence for the bot and FSD. So at that point, that's what you track. Simple as that.
That's also why I believe like the behind the scenes what was actually happening from a innovation theory perspective. Here's my big thesis, is that FSD actually made nearly no significant progress for 10 years. And most of the stuff happened actually in the last 3 years or 2.5 years.
Once the neural net
why
was in
is
place,
that?
Yeah,
exactly. But why is that? Because Tesla
they couldn't handle the videos. Yeah, but by the way, this leads us to the next topic, which is Elon's strategy. How incredible is it that Elon was able to foresee since 2012, which is like 15 years ago, 13 years ago, he knew that every car should have a camera because we'll need to have that video, because each of those videos will teach AI to be able to teach it how to drive itself. And he did that. He invested in every camera. And so his strategy from the beginning. Now, his strategy about politics, it turned out to be a good thing. We've got, we got the Secretary of State of Transportation at Giga Texas here. I'm going to pause it here so you don't hear him. But basically, that's the Secretary of Transportation physically in Giga Texas.
Probably not a mistake.
So, final thoughts.
But when it comes to strategy, by the way, strategy, we already touched on the secretary and the politics a little bit. But another thing that just blew my mind 36 hours ago or something was the recursive, like always coming back to Elon's key themes, because something that I was never excited about, even though I thought it's a good idea, is energy. And now I'm getting really excited about it, because what is the most important next giant bottleneck? Not a small bottleneck. I'm talking about the bottleneck of the entire freaking planet. Now, like in the next 12 months, it's going to be energy. And when you think about the energy mix, how do you actually fix the AI energy demand problem? What are your options? Is it gas? Is it coal? Is it oil? Is it nuclear? Or is it solar? And the answer is, of course, solar is the fastest thing. That's what you can build out. But what you need for it, you need infinite amounts of mega packs. Also for everything you basically need it. And now we are suddenly dealing with something where the United States has to double its energy production in the next 4 years or some crazy number. Like, just imagine what that means. And all the advanced technologies like nuclear, they take 10 years to get online. So that needs to be plugged. And who's in the absolute pole position to make this happen politically and strategically? It's Tesla. And that's totally new to me, like to even think about. This is an enormous, ridiculous thing when you do the math on it.
I would actually push back a little bit. Solar, the big problem with solar is that it's not firm. So you need to really overbuild and have a ton of batteries. And then when you do that, the cost actually ends up being more than natural gas. So I think natural gas is going to meet the need in the short term. We're already seeing that happen. GE's basically sold out of their turbines through 2028.
Well, it will be an all of the above strategy, right? You will need everything you can get your hands on.
But it's not going to be like solar alone. And especially with this House bill that passed today, taking away a lot of the incentives, I think that's going to make it the investment tax credit. If that ends up becoming law, that's going to make solar slightly less attractive overall. But I think natural gas is going to be the huge winner. And especially with this administration, they're pushing very hard to take more advantage of natural gas and kind of streamline that approval process. So I think it's going to be absolutely an all of the above strategy. I think we're going to see some new technologies help along this way, but I think it's like solar is going to keep building out. Wind has kind of stalled, but I think it's going to continue building out as well. And I think you're going to see a pretty significant amount of new natural gas plants being built also.
Yeah, I don't want to be misunderstood. I totally agree, Matt. I think solar, like what I'm saying is, energy is a giant topic, and it can't be nuclear because it needs to be short term. And Elon is on it, and I wouldn't be surprised. And this is as you know, it's a complicated thing. It's not just the power plants; it's all the other stuff, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some stuff happening with Tesla Energy that might go beyond solar and beyond megapacks. I'm not saying they're building gas plants, but I mean, this is a giant infrastructure build out in electricity. So
maybe they do a Tesla transformer or something. I mean, we know that that's a big bottleneck, and Elon has a habit of finding.
I've been the one saying I'm sure you remember this, Alexandra, that Master Plan Part 3 had 3 pillars. The first pillar is energy generation. Tesla does not play in energy generation. That's weird. Of course they're going to get into it. Now, people don't agree with me that they're going to create solar farms, but just wait. Just you wait.
They stopped reporting solar. Was it a year ago?
Well, because solar roofs failed. Solar roofs failed, and they pulled off the installers. I'm not saying solar roofs. I'm saying solar farms because why? They need it now. Elon needs it. Tesla needs it.
I mean,
how do you do 1 terawatt of power?
The reason I'm so bullish on Tesla Energy, assuming there will be something that we don't know, is because the perfect storm is forming. This is a giant operation. It's about the United States and the future. It's about AI, and Elon sits on top of it, sees everything, knows everything, and is in the middle of the administration. That's all I know. And it's about trillions of dollars, and Elon will come up with something. That's my conviction, because it's an emergency situation. You need giant, and it's huge and giant, and it's in the middle of the eye of the storm of AI, and it's politically super important. So I cannot imagine he sits in the middle of it and talks about it and doesn't do anything. That's all I'm saying. I don't even know what he's going to do.
Rather cryptic post about it the other day, saying like, "How do you build a terawatt of
exactly?
Generation?"
Why is he going to say that?
You're right. It kind of reminds me of.
And he was in Saudi Arabia at the time, dude. So
yeah, well, it reminds me of the time when he was posting about like the soul sucking traffic in LA, and then was like a month later, the Boring Company was formed. It's like,
exactly.
I agree with you, Joe.
And when he makes these posts, by the way, he'd already been doing something 6 months before. So
exactly. Yeah. And different from Boring, which was always a little weird to me, but here you have all the important principles that make Elon. Like, it's giant. It's about trillions. It's top priority for the president, and it's top priority for AI. And he talks about it. I mean, this is just too much for nothing to happen.
And it's ripe for disruption too. I mean, like the regulations in that space are just a disaster. And it's like I think there's nothing he loves more than like finding an old, like inefficient, corrupt system and like figuring out a much more efficient way to basically kill that old system and deliver something that's more economical and well designed.
Exactly.
You've converted
and
me.
You're totally right, man. It's the tweet that triggered me. It's like, why would he say that's like so Elon? A terawatt. How can I build a terawatt? He's going to do something.
Good place to end the show. We had a killer panel, killer conversations. We had 2 financial analysts here, retail analysts here. Appreciate you. So you can find Joe Bakhti. He's got his own website, his own YouTube channel, and you can join Pioneer Land as well. Then you've got Matt Smith. You can find him at rebellionaire.com. And then there's Alexandra Mertz. She does not have a website.
No, she does nothing.
So she does nothing. Does nothing. She's only the most important, most powerful Tesla retail investor there is. No, just kidding. But thank you very much, Alexandra, for sharing the information we need to know about the shareholder meetings and what's happening with the board, all that info. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys again.
Thank you, Herbert.
Bye, all.
Speak soon.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.